From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Quito, Ecuador, I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. We start in Ecuador, where the Minister of Interior, César Navas, has announced that 2 more people have been kidnapped by the armed group Oliver Sinisterra near the border with Colombia. The couple has yet to be identified. During the press conference, Navas showed a video of the abducted couple and explained this is the first time the front's leader, Guacho, has contacted the authorities directly with a proof of life. He added that President Lenín Moreno has called for a Security Council meeting to discuss the matter.
We have to inform the country that, after communicating with Guacho yesterday night, we have learned about the kidnapping of 2 more citizens. We received a video of a couple that hasn't been identified yet. It's important to let you know this is the first time Guacho sends us a proof of life and communicates directly with us.
Yesterday, President Moreno gave a 10-day ultimatum to the armed group to turn in their leader, known as Guacho. He's requested by justice for kidnapping and killing 2 journalists and their driver near the border with Colombia. Moreno said the front's leader will face death if the ultimatum isn't respected. He added that his government will not stop until justice is achieved. Ecuador has resumed military operations along the Colombian border in an attempt to find him and to improve security in the area.
We are giving them 10 days for them to hand over El Guacho to us. He has chosen the wrong path and the wrong enemy, so we are going to bring him to justice.
Foreign Minister Maria Fernanda Espinosa and Minister of Defense Patricio Zambrano met their Colombian counterparts to discuss plans to improve security at the border. During a press conference, both countries said they're coordinating operations with their defense teams. For his part, Zambrano said the Ecuadorian government continues working with the Red Cross to recover the bodies of the 2 journalists and their driver killed last week.
The government of Ecuador wants to reassure people that we are backing every action from International Red Cross to recover the bodies of the 3 victims. We support every action and any request that the Committee of the International Red Cross makes to the national government to bring the bodies of our citizens back.
Now we go to Brazil, where 4 parties have published a joint statement rejecting the imprisonment of Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. They say the arrest and incarceration of the former president was politically motivated, meaning legal uncertainty for the country. Brazil's Workers' Party, the Democratic Labour Party, Socialism and Liberty Party, along with the Communist Party of Brazil, said that Lula da Silva's arrest was in violation of the federal constitution and breaks with international human rights treaties, which establish the presumption of innocence and due process. Members of Brazil's Homeless Workers Movement, or MTST, occupied an apartment that prosecutors accused Lula da Silva of receiving as part of an alleged bribe. The case built around this Guarujá, Sao Paulo apartment is what led to his 12-year sentence and arrest. The banners displayed at the building said, "If this belongs to Lula, it belongs to the people. If it doesn't, then why is he in prison?" Lula has repeatedly denied acquiring the apartment and said there is no evidence to prove it. Members of the Homeless Workers Movement occupied the unit for several hours, chanting slogans in support of Lula. Demonstrators were eventually evicted after police threatened to detain them, although an eviction order was never ordered by any owner of that apartment. Still in Brazil, the government says it is very likely the Rio de Janeiro police were involved in the murder of social activist Marielle Franco and her driver last month. Following her murder, the government is under pressure to find her killers. No one has been arrested in the case yet. Franco was known for denouncing the illegal activities of the police and defending the rights of poor communities against police brutality and corruption. In Paraguay, the 2 leading candidates in the presidential election say they will reform the country's legal system if they are elected. The candidate for the ruling party, Colorado, Mario Abdo Benitez and opposition candidate Efraín Alegre announced the proposal during a TV debate on Sunday. It is hoped the reforms will tackle corruption and give confidence to foreign investors. The president of the Venezuelan National Electoral Council, Tibisay Lucena, is in Tunisia to talk about the strengths of the Venezuelan electoral system. During a meeting with African and European social organizations, Lucena talked about the legitimacy of the upcoming Venezuelan elections. She referred to the electoral system as one of the best in the world.
The electoral system of Venezuela is unique in the world. There is no other country in the world that can guarantee the integrity of the vote the same way Venezuela does. Also, in the last few years, we have built an automated system. The vote in Venezuela is 100% automated, and we do that through the auditing offices and also the certification that political parties give for the proper functioning of the electoral process, which guarantee the transparency and the reliability of Venezuelan electoral system.
Despite his unpopularity, U.S. President Donald Trump has some notable allies who have aligned themselves to his stance against Venezuela. Freddie Gillingham pays particular attention to one of those countries, Canada.
Incumbent Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, was one of several leaders meeting in Peru over the weekend. Canada has joined the US and other right-wing countries in the region in taking an even more hostile stance against Venezuela.
That the suffering and the violence and the humanitarian crisis they are undergoing needs to cease. It starts with delivering humanitarian aid, but it also requires more and more voices from the region to stand in solidarity in favor of the Venezuelan people who are suffering.
The Trudeau government is playing a leading role in economic sanctions against Venezuela, which are cutting off the Venezuelan government's access to dollars, which is the hard currency needed to buy medicine and basic goods. We spoke to political analyst Diego Siqueira to find out a bit more about what the Canadian government's agenda could be.
And you can see from that point of view, on the obvious side, they're dealing with all the human rights mantra portfolio. Actually, they can do it even better than, and discreetly and even more elegantly than the US does it right now. But still, in the big picture, it complies to what the main agenda, global agenda is against Venezuela. And why is that? And you have the main Canadians, mining companies, very interested in what's called the mining arch, especially now that Venezuela owns the fourth main gold reserve worldwide.
Canada joined the US and others in declaring they won't be recognizing Venezuela's presidential election result in May. But Canada remains in support of Brazil, whose president, Michel Temer, has no real electoral legitimacy. Although touted by Western media as a liberal saviour next to Donald Trump, some of Trudeau's other policies are far from innocent and are having serious repercussions south of the border. Freddie Gillingham, teleSUR, Caracas.
We'll take a short break now, but join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting.
this lovely city. You can go to France or America.
Welcome back. Cuba's new National Assembly of Popular Power is to convene for the first time this Wednesday, a day earlier than planned. The meeting is of great importance for the Cuban Revolution as it will elect a new leadership for the Parliament and the Council of State. This will in turn choose a new president, as Raúl Castro is stepping down. Our correspondent in Havana, Laura Prada, has more.
Hello, yes, thank you. Nice to greet you. Indeed, today was announced that the Cuban National Assembly on its 9th legislature will take place one day earlier than expected, on the 18th of April and the 19th of April. On these 2 days will be taking place the oath of the 605 deputies just elected in the month of March and the election of the main charges of the National Assembly. After this vote, this secret vote, will be taking place also another votation after the National Assembly settles with its main figures. And this is the presentation by the Candidature Commission of the 31 members of the State Council, and then the election of the President, the first Vice President, and the other Vice Presidents of Cuba. This will be the final part of the general election process in Cuba that started on the month of November. And we'll be telling you more what goes on here in Cuba.
That was Laura Prada from Havana. Bolivian President Evo Morales has decried the threats posed by capitalism on indigenous communities and the environment. This during the United Nations Forum on Indigenous Issues in New York. Morales said indigenous communities are in danger as resources are controlled by a few and because capitalism doesn't recognize the rights of nature. He added the earth must not be used as a commodity. He also reminded the forum that it was Bolivia and Latin America that defended their natural resources and gave them back to their people. Morales asked the UN to guarantee the rights of Mother Earth in order to guarantee the life of future generations and to respect the experience of their ancestors. In Chile, Mapuche indigenous activists are being blamed for a fire in the Araucanía district. Officials say a pamphlet about indigenous leader Machi Celestino Córdoba was found at the site of the blaze and will be used as evidence. No one has taken responsibility for the fire, but the Interior Minister says he will pursue charges under anti-terrorist laws, which have been used to criminalize the Mapuche people. The Mapuche have been demanding the release of political prisoners and the return of their traditional lands that are now controlled by multinational corporations. The United States Southern Command is beginning joint military exercises in Trinidad and Tobago with support from Barbados. The Fuse Response 2018 exercise will see an increased number of U.S. troops and their equipment throughout the length and breadth of the country and runs from April 16 to the 27th. Southcom says this is a regular joint simulation training operation aimed at boosting the Twin Island nations' response capability. But it comes at a time of increased tension between the U.S. and Trinidad's neighbor, Venezuela. Relatives of the Argentine Ara San Juan submarine, which went missing 5 months ago, are asking to contract a private search company, expressing a lack of faith in the government of Mauricio Macri. Family members of the 44 missing crew members held a ceremony in their honor. The sister of Lieutenant Eliana Krosik said that her sister and the 43 others on board deserve a thorough search and for the truth to come out about what exactly happened after the submarine last made contact on November 15th. Personnel vessels from a number of countries came to aid Argentina in the rescue without success.
My sister deserves the truth. My sister and the 43 men of honor who were on board the submarine with her deserve the truth. It's not fair for this to stay in history as a tragedy in which a submarine carrying 44 Argentinians was lost. It's not fair to Argentinian history for it to remain like that.
Our correspondent in Buenos Aires, Edgardo Esteban, brings us more.
It's been 5 months since the disappearance of the Ara San Juan submarine in Argentina's water. Minister of Defense Oscar Aguad is speaking in front of the Chamber of Senators and legislators about the investigative works being carried out by the Argentine government that has revealed very little information during this long search period. The minister has committed to continue investigating and searching for the answers that the families of the missing crew members have been demanding. They are disappointed, on one hand, about the efforts made by Mauricio Macri's government to find the crew or at least the places and details of the submarine's explosion and disappearance. And on the other hand, about the reduced support they have received from the army and the heads of the country. There have been no subsidies or any kind of aid for the families of the victims. It is expected for Minister Aguad to talk about all of this in his report in Congress. This is a difficult humanitarian situation about which people hope to know the truth someday.
That was Edgardo Esteban from Argentina. Now poverty in Uruguay is falling, according to the most recent official statistics. The president says it's a result of deliberate government policies, but cutting unemployment is still a challenge.
Uruguay continues to widen the gap with its neighbors, showing a sharp reduction in poverty. The statement was made by the Uruguayan president, Tabaré Vázquez.
Now it's 7.9%, but in 2006 it was 32.5%. Almost 1,200,000 Uruguayans live below the poverty line in 2006. This is not a coincidence nor a miracle. It's the result of having public and social policies.
At the same time, he highlighted the decline in poverty. The president also questioned those who forget the situation at the beginning of the broad front governments 12 years ago.
Some media had the headline that child poverty is at 17%. And it's true, they didn't lie, and it pains us. But you know that in 2006, child poverty was at 60%, and now it's at 17%.
The statistics also show that inequality has declined, which is attributed to a change in direction of economic and social policies in recent years.
There's also a decrease in inequality in Uruguay, which along with the poverty figures shows the policy orientation. And this has continued in different scenarios, because it's one thing to be in a period of strong growth and improve social indicators, but it's quite another thing to go through a crisis and still keep improving.
Despite the encouraging return to economic growth, the decrease in poverty, and industrial expansion, there is an increase in unemployment, which remains one of the big challenges to overcome.
We'll take one last short break, but join us after another look at what our multimedia team reports. Welcome back. 7 inmates have been killed and another 17 seriously wounded in a prison riot in South Carolina, United States. The incident happened at Lee Correctional Institution in Bishopville, South Carolina's largest maximum security prison. The incident lasted 8 hours and is the deadliest prison riot in 25 years. Officials say the incident lasted 8 hours and was caused by gang-related disputes, and most victims died of stab wounds. Alexander Shulgin, the Russian OPCW representative, has stated that Russia has distributed visual materials at the OPCW Executive Council meeting to prove the incident in Duma was of a staged character, while speaking in The Hague on Monday. Shulgin stated that Western countries are refusing to hear arguments voiced by the Russian side. Shulgin also expressed doubts that Washington and London had actually managed to hit any actual secret chemical weapons facility in Syria, as no traces of chemical contamination have been detected after the missile strikes.
Today at the OPCW Executive Council meeting, we have distributed visual materials to prove the incident in Duma was of a staged character, in fact. The same children that performed as victims moved from one room to another. I repeat that our vis-a-vis from Western countries, especially NATO member states and from the European Union as well, chained together with bloc discipline, don't want or cannot hear us. They don't take our argumentation, so it's a conversation with deaf people. Moreover, these countries take liberties of making insults on Syria and blame us in obstructing work of experts of the Organization for Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. But it's just the opposite, as it's the Americans, who are trying to tie up a full-scale investigation. What other explanation could be made for the treacherous strikes against Syria by the United States, Great Britain and France in that particular moment, when a group of experts were getting ready to drive from Beirut to Damascus? Isn't it an attempt to encumber the investigation?
A Syrian civilian who was recently freed from insurgent captivity in newly liberated Duma has revealed how militants allegedly forced him to participate in a staged chemical weapons attack scene that they then filmed back in 2015.
The militants gathered us and forced us to take our shirts off and then said, "The army is about to use chemical weapons. You should pretend chemical weapons were used against you and that you cannot breathe. We will pour water on you to revive you." There was a doctor with us, kidnapped from the industrial city. His name was George Mahul. He is a Christian. He was forced to fill syringes and pretend that he was injecting us to revive us. They, the militants, then poured water on us and forced us to pretend that we were unconscious according to their wish. They brought a camera and filmed us. Then they got us inside. I said to myself, we might be killed, but thank God we survived.
Moving ahead, let's have a look at some other stories making headlines from around the world.
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has left for the US to meet the US President Donald Trump on Tuesday. During their 2 days of talks, North Korea's nuclear program will be the main focus. They will also be discussing trade and relations with China.
I will confirm the U.S. stance on how we will continue to apply maximum pressure on North Korea as we work towards achieving their irreversible, completely verifiable nuclear and missile disarmament process.
US adult film star Stormy Daniels has said she won't rest until the truth about her affair with US President Donald Trump is made public. Trump's personal lawyer Michael Cohen has admitted paying Daniels $130,000 before the 2016 election to buy her silence. Michael Cohen has been under criminal investigation for months over his business dealings. The FBI raided his home, hotel room and office last week. On Monday, Cohen appeared in a New York court where Daniels was also asked to appear. Scientists in the US and Britain have accidentally engineered an enzyme which eats plastic. This breakthrough could help solve the growing problem of plastic pollution in the world. The new discovery was a follow-up of a bacterium found in Japan at a dump site in 2016. Researchers at the British University of Portsmouth and at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory in the US decided to continue investigating and found this plastic-eating enzyme.
And we end with the news that Kendrick Lamar's album, Damned, has won the Pulitzer Prize for Music. This is the first non-classical or jazz work to win the award. The 30-year-old rapper has won 11 Grammys. The album Damned has been praised by Rolling Stones magazine as a brilliant combination of the timeless and the modern, the old school and the next level. And now we've come to the end of this news brief. This and other stories, you can find them on our website, telesurtv.net/English. And you can also find us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.